Hey, welcome. And today we'll be reviewing season 8 and the finale of Game of Thrones. So,
Yeah. It's just us
I know
two.
we have a lot of thoughts. Yeah, it's just us two today.
Yeah, Prince doesn't watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I had to sneak watch it. So,
Yeah.
but I have a lot of thoughts. I know you do as well.
Yeah. I'd say like the overall consensus, not just between like people we know, like just the public, it's pretty negative. I mean, some people like have said that the final episode is the worst episode of the show. Some people have said it's trash. Before we talk about the last episode, I want to talk about the episode 5, which is the penultimate episode, which is really the episode I hate. So really, before I go into episode 6, I'll just like say this about my opinion. I thought episode 6, which is the final one, is pretty good for a finale. You know, and I'll go into why I don't hate as much as everybody and blah blah. But episode 5, I just have to throw a little rant at really quick because I really didn't like that, and I know there are people who are devout Game of Thrones fans who might just be like, devout, Daenerys fans who are trying to defend what they did to her character. And like, it's just simple as like, people are like, oh, do you not remember when she put all the slavers on the cross at Slaver's Bay or whatever? Like, Daenerys, at the point of her character is that she gets more aggressive as the show goes on. And yeah, she has like Targaryen blood. But like, that does not mean that you can 180 her character and make her start burning children alive because she sees like King's Landing in the bell tower, because the way that the show's creators, David Benioff and D.B. Wise, break down and where they break down each episode, they said that like it angers her to see that building that her family built and with the country, and so she just kind of loses it. And that was something I really didn't like because I felt that she was getting more ruthless as the show went on, but there was nothing to justify her to burn children. If she burned down King's Landing and killed all his Cersei's troops and even like mercilessly killed Cersei, like I would have thought it was like messed up, but it was like appropriate for her character. But her burning children alive and stuff, it just felt really like a big 180 for me, and that's why I really did like that episode.
I agree. Well, we're talking about season 5, or episode 5. Yeah, I agree. I think the thing is that it didn't feel earned to me. It felt basically like more like it was shock value in a way. Like, oh, let's do this. Let's have her kill, women and kids, and let's have them burned alive. And for me, I felt like definitely it wasn't in her nature, even though it's like, oh, mad king, mad queen. Yeah. But no, not for me. That's not what her path was. Yeah. And it was not leading up to that. I don't care if they say, oh, well, she saw her friend get beheaded and that's what made her. No, it's like it didn't seem earned. Yeah,
well, not just that. She's like Daenerys Stormborn, break of chains, blah, blah, blah. Khaleesi, like...
She was on a redemptive
she path, was very much... She was saving slaves. She was going around, like, the world helping people. And, yes, she definitely did some things that are, like, pretty ruthless. But she also saw ruthless things. Her brother was messed up. She was rolling with the Dothraki, who were, kind of savages. She was doing things, and she picked up some of that nature, but she always stayed true to her, character. And that was something that I liked about Daenerys. And I could see... It actually, it seems like a natural course of actions to get more like corrupt as you watch that, but not to get so corrupted that you start burning children alive really quickly when you've never done something remotely that bad before. And that was really, for me, like it exemplifies one of the problems today with shows and movies where they try to like subvert your expectations, but
shock
they don't.
Value.
Yeah, and movies and shows have done that so many times brilliantly. Breaking Bad is an example of something that's always subverted my expectations every time I watched an episode, and I was like, wow, but it always made sense. And The Last Jedi is something else that me and Taj, we'll make a whole other video on that. We're not here to talk about that, but it's something me and Taj are deeply passionate about. It's like our least favorite Star Wars movie. And it's because that movie really felt like, it was like, here, you want to get shocked or do you want a good story? We'll go with the shock.
Yeah. And let's do something completely different that no one's looking.
Yeah, and it felt a little insulting, but we're not here to talk about Star Wars. But that's what I'm just saying, that when you sacrifice your story, your characters, or anything else that is fundamental to your film or show in order to shock your audience for a brief moment, you've done a disservice to your fans and a disservice to the great things that you've set up before in that franchise or that show. And that's what this felt like a little bit.
What do you say to people that will say that, well, she had always someone that kept her in line, or someone that kept her good in that way? What would be your answer to that?
Okay, so yeah, that's
been an argument.
Valid argument I've heard, especially because in that episode, Jon Snow's like kind of rejects her, and she loves Jon Snow, even though it's kind of weird because he's like her nephew or something. But The thing was about that is I do understand that, and I understand, like I said, if it was justified at the point where she went and burned like King's Landing down and killed all the troops, like and even killed Cersei, I think it would have been more in line with her character, because maybe if Jorah Mormont was there, she wouldn't even have done that. But the thing was is that Daenerys has always been like big on the whole family thing. We see in the first couple seasons, which she's like before she's really only in the first season before she's like Khaleesi and all this. She has like kind of an abusive relationship with her brother. There's that whole thing, and she's clearly like somebody who wants to inspire good. And she's said like, I'm not going to be the Queen of Ashes. She's not going to be her father. And then guess what she is? The Queen of Ashes. And she's like, I'm going to just rule. But she gets so power hungry, which I get was something they set up. The reason I think they did it, and it's not just because of the subverting expectations. I really think the reason they did it, and this is really cheap to me, was because they wanted it to make it so you knew which side you were rooting for and who should get the throne. Because they were like, it's basically treating your audience like they're dumb.
Yeah.
And I hate when movies do that.
Well, she did all that, so she must die now.
She must be evil, and we can't like her anymore.
Yeah, and it was cheap. For one episode, there was, I think if there was a whole season of her descending into madness, it would have been, but one episode, and it's like, she snapped, and then it's like, it's not even, I'm not even giving credit and say she snapped, because I don't even feel that.
Yeah, I don't think she snapped. I mean, seeing like
that's
a building
me trying to fill in blanks.
Yeah, like seeing your building, your ancestors built, so I'm going to like kill these citizens. Like, if she thought with any sort of logic or reason at all, which she's supposed to be a pretty logical and reasonable person, like she would be like, well, these people they have no stake in this. They're like, a lot of those people are like the poverty stricken, like, lower class of King's Landing, and they're just people with families. And she decides like, I'm gonna burn them because I'm angry at this and this. It doesn't feel like it's justified for her character. And so those things where I just feel like they really only did that because that when you treat your audience like they don't know what they're doing, it feels really like cheap. And and she didn't look regretful. I was hoping they would at least in episode 6 have a scene where she was like really contemplating like what I did was so wrong. And she's like comes out and gives this whole speech about Westeros. And I was like, no, like they made her a villain. And it was not like a great fall villain, like how I feel about Anakin Skywalker and stuff. That's not how I feel about this. I felt like
how to kill a character, basically.
How to kill a character,
which
literally does happen.
I'm trying not to say about Last Jedi, but how to kill a character, like and what do you think about like the White Walkers and stuff like that? That was what was that episode 3?
Episode 3, the long night, which I had people tell me at school, and I watched it the day after it came out. I had people tell me like this is the best episode of the show. People said it's the best battle. Some people said it's better than the Avengers battle, and these are all real quotes. I'm not making these up for hyperbole. And I watched it with so much, and I was like watching it. I was like, okay, and then I'm like 30 minutes in, and I'm like, what is this? Like, am I not liking this? Because like, and I'll tell you that I really get mad when I'm watching a show or a movie that has a high budget and is a major production, especially, you're into lighting and all that stuff. And you get annoyed when you watch it. And you're like, dude, there's people, like, if your story and acting and stuff are bad, like, that's your problem. But you should always stay professional on these huge budget and huge production shows. And when you have this lighting that's so amateurish that it looks stupid, I don't care if it's at night, like, you should be able to see what's going on. Because the Blackwater battle is at night, and that looked great. So I don't know
who dropped the ball on that. Because
it had to be lighting department.
It could have been color. It could have been the color correction. It could have been the quality control. That could have, there's just all these channels that it goes through, and it's like, but it went through all those channels, in terms of where some people said it was the compression because of the cable, and they compress it, and it compressed the black. I don't know. I mean, I do colorist stuff as well, so I do know that. I mean, I was pumping up the gamma. I was like, and I already had it high up because I always have it high up for Game of Thrones because it's always darker. But I still couldn't see anything.
Yeah,
it's
like, frustrating.
So frustrating. And, they spent money on this for us not to see it.
Exactly. And like another movie, it's not a movie I love, but like Batman vs Superman, which is a pretty like dark movie in terms of its color. You can always see what's happening at least. Like Game of Thrones, it was like a little frustrating. And more than that, on a story level, like I thought it was just a pretty boring battle. The strategy seemed a little dumb. I wish there was some more nuance. Like I always compare Game of Thrones battles to Lord of the Rings. And it's hard to be compared to Lord of the Rings. Those are like perfect movies. But at the end of the day, it was like not even close to perfect. They've had some incredible battles in Game of Thrones, and this was for me not one of them.
What were they flying over with the dragons? What were they doing?
I don't know.
I mean, why weren't they burning White Walkers?
Well, they burned like at the end.
She
was like sitting up there watching, like, and she's not like a military commander. She was like the queen, and she has those aides and like those aides with her to watch and stuff. And Jorah Mormont was down there. It felt like This episode, the one scene I loved in that episode was the scene with Arya in the library. And that felt like a very intense scene, a little horror movie-esque. But besides that, it was just like people, people not everybody got their moment. I kind of wish Samuel Tarly got to do something he kind of has been the original White Walker killer. They don't even let him do anything. No. And I was like, what? And not only that, on a military strategy level, putting everybody in the crypt is really dumb. I don't know the exact details to the strategy, but I don't want to also go into that too much. But look it up online why it's a dumb strategy, and it's a very dumb strategy. Yeah, whoever played that in Westeros and whoever played that in the show, they do a very good job.
Yeah. What other episodes kind of stood out for you
this season? Yeah. Well, so we talked about 3 and 5, which are kind of the big ones. 1, 2, and 4, kind of nothing really happened. I liked Brienne getting knighted. I felt like that was a pretty good moment.
That was nice, yeah.
And I love scenes like that in movies and shows. I like when my favorite characters get to kind of be humans.
Yeah.
They just get to talk around a table and stuff. And that was a really good scene. Episode 4 was fine. Kind of felt bad for Miss Sunday getting her head chopped off.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I just those are just fine episodes, but they don't have that same episode, that same quality that the old slow episodes Game of Thrones has. Because a lot of the episodes between seasons 1 through 6, before everything starts popping off, are slow, people walking to places, but they always felt interesting. Same way in the Lord of the Rings, where Sam and Frodo and all on their way to Mount Doom have those interesting moments. I felt that was a little missing from this season.
Do you think that battle? The episode 3, it's like we were gearing up when we heard about it for so long.
Yes.
And it kind of peaked early, in terms of we got our resolution, and now it's the next couple of episodes were just kind of downhill.
Well, okay, you can't cram that much story into one season. 6 episodes too. I mean, a lot of people have been accusing the creators of just trying to get rid of it so they could get to Star Wars. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't want to speak on that because I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I will say this: if that is true, and they wanted to get Star Wars, that's their choice. That's cool. But hand it off to somebody else. There been plenty of show. Daredevil switch showrunners. You could get good shows that switch showrunners that and they still are made good shows. At Game of Thrones, you can't cram that. Very arguably that you could have extended that into 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's a bold statement, but the White Walkers coming at one place at one time and just all die, it felt kind of lame. And I really do not like in media, whether it be movies or TV, when the big guy gets killed and all of his troops die somehow. Mm. And I understand that actually is how it works for the White Walkers. But for me, they were hyping up those White Walkers. I was kind of hoping for a twist on that. They were actually sympathetic villains. He was trying to get the White Walkers across the wall because then they could lead to salvation. I was hoping none of that. There was none of that at all. And it was just so what was the point of doing some of this stuff? That's how the season feels a lot. It sets you up to believe things and subverted your expectations. But subverting expectations is only good when it seems relevant to the story. And for me, there was nothing relevant about some of the choices they made, especially with the White Walkers. One episode's not enough.
I think you said it best. There's no payoff for anything, whether it was Jaime and Brienne, whether it was Arya, even Arya, she went from killing, the Night to Night King, right?
Yeah.
Killing Night King to all of a sudden being like a damsel in distress on the last episode where she's just running through, scared. And it's I like arcs. I like beginning,
Arya
middle.
had a great character arc.
Who?
Arya. And it just felt like the end of it was
it's okay, it almost like she went back to being who she was in the beginning.
I don't really like when shows or movies do that. I like if they do it for a brief second to show you where characters come, where they originated from. But it didn't feel like that. Who another character I feel like that with is Jaime, who he kind of grew out of Cersei's shadow. He saw her kind of be a little bit of a monster in season 7 when they knew the Walkers were coming, and instead of he's I just love her so much. And I get it. Sometimes that is how that works, whatever, romance. But it was really? Do you actually? Because you were really adamant about not loving her in season 7 at the end. And that's what it felt like to me. And then now you do love her. So it was I don't know. I just don't know if I felt good about that choice.
I felt that, maybe, I don't know if it's choice of words or what. I felt like if he was I still want to warn her or something like that. But I love her and I'm just always I'm a bad man and it's
That scene was a little weird. That was like it was like that scene. It's like a scene in a movie or a show where that character who's always been kind of a more conflicted character. They admit to their flaws or something, but then they kind of go out like a hero, or they're like this and this. It reminds me a little bit of in Avengers actually, when Hawkeye's like telling Black Widow, he's like, "Oh, I'm a monster, I should die," and she's like, "No, whatever." Like, and I know you don't watch Dragon Ball Z, but if you watch this, you're a fan. Where Vegeta kills himself for Majin Buu, like he kind of realizes some of his flaws. I didn't feel like that at all. He was like, instead, it was like reverse. He's like, "Oh yeah, I've become a good guy, but I'm not anymore because I love Cersei," and it just felt like super like, why are you doing that? Yeah,
And Cersei had really nothing to do this season at all.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because Headley, I don't know, I forgot her last name. It's Hetty, I think. But who plays Cersei, she did such a good job, and I started hating her these last few seasons. It gave those that hateable character, and I loved how much I hated her. And this season, she just like drank some goblets of wine while that one guy, I forgot his name, her little headmaster, just kind of said like, "My queen, Daenerys is coming," and it was like. It's like, do something with her. It felt like so many times, especially with, who else? Jon Snow and Tyrion. It was like, let them do something for what Tyrion was he was still my favorite character even now, even though, because Peter Dinklage is just a fantastic actor.
Incredible.
And even when he has nothing to do, he's good. That's just what good actors do. But like, it felt like Tyrion and Jon Snow, it was like, could you do like something? Because you guys are being wasted right now. And it's so sad for those actors who have been doing such a great job, and have these incredible arcs.
So we're back. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties. I hit a button, and so luckily we only missed about a minute of talking, but we're gonna pick up where we left off.
Yeah. So we were talking about Tyrion and how in this season we felt like he's been a little underused, and not only that is Tyrion spent in like seasons 1 through like about 5, maybe 4. He's been maybe he's not just one of the best characters, but he's been one of those characters that he's just a very smart character, and it felt like these last few seasons he's just gotten a little dumber and like less useful, and that's something that's really it's a big shame because for me Peter Dinklage and Tyrion is probably my favorite character on the show, and I just think it's a little frustrating what they did with him. And yeah, I was gonna say, if we're talking about wasted characters, we should talk about Jon Snow.
Yeah, real quick on the Tyrion. I think the thing that bothered me more about it was that it's not like he got outsmarted. It's not like he met his match and like, it's just he started doing dumb decisions.
Yeah,
it's like that's the problem that I had. It was more like dumb decision after dumb decision. But yeah, definitely.
Since you did say, I'll have a little thing to add on to that. Okay. I think a good example of that is in Breaking Bad when you get Gus. And he feels like the first guy who's maybe as smart as Walter White, but Walter White never gets dumb, and he even outsmarts Gus at the end. And it would have been kind of cool if they got a foil for Tyrion that was kind of like, "Oh, I'm smart too, so I'm going to challenge you." But it was just like he was like, "Tyrion, you feel like you would have done something different in seasons 1 through 5, but now you're doing this." But yeah, you're talking about Jon Snow. I will say this about Jon Snow: I'm not like a huge Jon Snow fan, and I don't dislike him or anything. I just never liked him as much as everybody else. But he is a cool character, and a character I definitely like. But this season, oh my god, like he really didn't do anything, and it was super annoying to see. Like a lot of people making a joke online, like the most dialogue Jon Snow says in like seasons or episodes 4 and 5 is like, "You are my queen," and fall back, and it's kind of true. Like he doesn't do a lot of stuff, and why would you tell people he was Targaryen if you weren't planning to do something with it? Because I wasn't even mad that Bran got the throne, and I'll talk about why in a second. But like, why would you just tell us that? Because it feels like you were setting us up to believe that. But we subverted your expectations. But it's not like subverting like how in the Winter Soldier we find out S.H.I.E.L.D. is Hydra, and it was like, ooh, that makes sense for your story. It was just like, here's something that you're anticipating, but we're not going to give it to you. Like, why would you do that?
I was going to use hate, but that's a strong word. I so dislike that when people do that. It's like,
oh, raise parents.
Yeah. But yeah, we follow this journey of Jon Snow. We follow him through the whole, seasons. And I loved his story. I mean, I liked Jon Snow because it felt like he was someone that was fighting to get to the throne. And even if he didn't want it, he was rightfully gonna get it.
It's not just that. He thought he thought very little of himself, especially for the first
thought about everyone else.
He was a bastard, and so he thought so. And then he finds out his royal heritage, that he's the heir to the throne. And it was like, oh, tell us that, but don't give us it. It's a little weird. And if you did that, I would whatever. But why don't you just make a Master Commander at Castle Black?
He ended up almost right where he started.
Yeah, I was like, why do you really like the wildlings? Like, I know he liked Egret, who's dead now, but like that was like do you like that's like if I was like, hey, can I go hang out with these friends like who I'm not friends with? It was like, I don't know if you liked it that much. I don't know Jon Snow personally because he doesn't exist. But like, I thought for me, if I was writing the show, it wouldn't make much logical sense to have him go off like that. It was an interesting like last shot, but it didn't feel like so like beautiful or emotional like a lot of other shows. And movies.
And they brought him back from the dead. You know, and
yeah. Jon Snow was like very arguably the protagonist of the show by season 6, and like Daenerys was the co-protagonist who then becomes like the antagonist so quickly, but whatever. But like, I felt a little bad for Kit Harington, who like became such a fan favorite and really like got something that he didn't seem like he liked. It did seem like a lot of actors liked this ending. From if you see those videos,
he got Hamilled.
Yeah,
Mark Hamill.
Wow, Mark Hamill got the worst. But yeah, like where you see that actors just they because no matter how much an actor might play off that. They like don't really love play. Like I think there's something special to say that you are playing an iconic character that people love, and I think most actors care about their character. Even Robert Downey Jr., who had he's played Iron Man so many times that he's probably like not bored, but he's just like, oh yeah, it's whatever. He still loves that character. Mm-hmm. If they made Tony Stark in Avengers start like murdering people at the end, he would have been like, this is wrong.
Yeah, it's not what my character would do.
Yeah, just do these 180s, and it wasn't even about a 180 for Jon or Tyrion. It was like. Nothing.
Didn't give him anything.
It's just like you don't get anything, and that was frustrating. Do you want to talk about how did you feel about Bran?
Well, I know how you felt a little because we talked about it. For me, I don't know. He wasn't the choice for me in that way, and it's cool to give it to someone. It's like by default or whatever. Okay. But it was more like he sat there for many seasons, as a 3-eyed raven. And just like basically saying, speaking in tongue, words that people didn't even understand. And it's like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, you're king now.
Yeah, well, have you ever seen Watchmen or read the book Watchmen?
Yeah.
Does he remind, do you know Dr. Manhattan? Yeah. How he's kind of like omnipresent and all-seeing. That's kind of how Bran is, which is cool because you're like, oh, that's a great king. But then again, Bran doesn't have... like humanity
that's the problem that I had.
But I don't think it was a big deal because it was like Bran also seems like the thing about that Tyrion said was a little weird. Just he was like, every king is a great story, and I was like, but what? Like that's why he's the king. For me, it felt like Bran didn't want it, so like whatever. But if Bran was fighting so hard for something, and to be the 3-eyed raven most likely, then he could kind of see what was needed. Like then. Why would he choose to be king? Like, if he didn't think that he should be king, because he never really says like I could see that I should be king, like in my visions. He just kind of is like I don't want to be king, but I will anyway. Yeah. So he either thinks he's the best candidate, or he sees something that we don't see. And if you see something that we don't see, if you're ending your show, it's not like a setup for something later. It's the end of your show, so you should probably have him outright be like, yeah, I saw this vision where I was a great king, and nobody else could fill the role, but it didn't feel like that. And also, the thing about it, as much as I didn't hate it as everybody else did, it didn't feel earned. And that's a lot of things about the season. It wasn't like, and not everything has to be fan service or like, oh, I know you've been waiting for this, so here it is. But it has to feel like earned or something. Like, and the two biggest things this year were who's going to sit on the Iron Throne and who's probably going to kill Thanos or die in Avengers. Yeah. And one of those I felt pretty satisfied with. And the other one, I was just like, it's not what I wanted because, I like to be surprised. But it's not what I felt like you guys even wanted, like the cast and all the writers, But the creators, I guess they deemed it that's what should happen. And Bran had an interesting journey, but now it's just kind of like him sitting there.
Well, I think you said it best, earned, and then also Tyrion's explanation felt kind of cheap to me in terms of like, oh, he had the best. Really, he had the best story out of Arya, out of Jon Snow.
Does he have a better story than Jon Snow?
I know
that's an argument,
and even Arya, or even Sansa. They all have better stories than Bran did.
Yeah, the thing also about Sansa, so Sansa and Bronn of the Blackwater, those are the two like characters. I was like. You literally gave them zero things to do. Sansa probably had
you mean on this
3 minutes of dialogue this season, and Bronn had about 2.
Yeah,
and I loved Bronn wasn't like the most emotionally serious character, But Bronn was such a cool character. He was kind of like just that character that has that physical presence that you're like, oh, this guy's cool, but he's also very funny. But he had like none of that, And also I feel like this season is really like you could look at any moment that's a big moment and be like, there's so many better versions and examples of that in others. What's called like seasons of this show. Because for me, this is just a personal preference. You know, my favorite scene / moment in the show is when Tyrion has his trial in season 4. But you know, that's not like a very like epic action moment or anything. But if you look at epic action moments, there's better battles. There's better like, you know, of those moments where people who deserve to die, like Ramsay and Joffrey. And everything in this season, like those are 2 great deaths. People were
incredible. Yeah, people.
You don't
cheered.
get that here. Cersei died. I felt a little bad for Cersei. She was like crying. And, you know, as much as I hate Cersei, she's evil. I can kind of like feel that pain of like if your house is being burned down, there's a dragon. Like, how would you wouldn't like be like, I'm going to stand here and die. You'd be like, I want to die in somebody's arms of love, and she died in her blood. And I was like, wasn't I supposed to hate you? It seems like the showrunners and the writers or somebody didn't have a clear focus and direction they wanted to go in, or a clear idea. And I think that personally, I think the show never is as good as it is in season 4. I think it gets a dip in quality. It's not severe like 8, but from 5 to 6 to 7, it's kind of dipping. But you know, the reason why, and I didn't even know this till a couple of days ago, is that they stopped explicitly basing off of George R. R. Martin's books. And it's because, like, you could see his talent. He's an extremely gifted writer. He made this whole, you know, world and universe. And, like, they really just, you know, a lot of that, I feel like the things, not only things he was setting up, but just some of the ideas he had, it felt like they were a little scrapped. And the writing, the dialogue in the first 4 seasons is better. The action is mostly better. The acting is a lot better. And it just feels like the show has a pretty big dip in quality. And for me, because people are arguing Game of Thrones is the greatest show of all time. If you're to be called the greatest thing of all time, you better get better with every season, you know?
You have to stick the landing,
if you're a trilogy or something, you know?
Yeah,
and like Lord of the Rings, which is very arguably the greatest film trilogy of all time. It gets better with every movie. And, you know, I'm not saying you have to, like Star Wars, which is arguably the best trilogy. You know, Empire's, most people would agree, is better than Return of the Jedi. But it's not like Return of the Jedi is a piece of garbage. And, you know, I don't know if I would call it Season 8 a piece of garbage, but I think you could make a pretty compelling argument for calling Season 8 a piece of garbage when compared to the magnificence of, like, Seasons 1 through 4.
Yeah, for me, it was the lack of payoffs.
Yeah.
Literally, because they built all these things up in terms of, oh, so-and-so has this journey, so-and-so. I mean, Brienne didn't have her, you know, payoff in that way. Jon Snow didn't even have his payoff in that way. It's like, you know, Arya goes off to go look for something. We don't even know what she's...
Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, it's like, it's literally, they just said, I think they spin like a dial and just said, let's have them do that, you know, like, oh, let's have them do that.
When I saw Sansa sitting down at like Winterfell, which is, you know, such an iconic and important location in Game of Thrones, and like a place where all these important things have happened, and she's kind of lost her family, and she's a grown woman now, she's a queen. I was like, I didn't even feel anything because she's in like 5 seconds of the show, and also I was like, did you even like set up Sansa to be queen? I felt like you were setting up like Jon to be ruler or somebody else to just be in charge, and none of it felt earned. The only thing I was probably happy with was Tyrion to be the hand, because I actually personally didn't want Tyrion to be on the throne. And it's not because I don't like Tyrion. I adore Tyrion. But like the thing he said was kind of true. Like because the thing is, a lot of people in Game of Thrones hate the fact that, you know, he is a dwarf, and you know they judge him for that. Tywin hated him for that too. And he also he said I sided with Daenerys, then I betrayed Daenerys. So both halves hate me. So, you know, I thought that was interesting. Yeah, have you heard about the island that the Unsullied are going to? It has like killer butterflies or something, so they're all gonna die.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that real?
No, yeah, it's real. I never read the books. Full disclosure, so I don't know like every piece of lore about this. But universe. That's where
they're supposed to.
Yeah, it has like poisonous butterflies that if you're not from there, you can't be immune to. So you're like gonna die.
Oh my god.
So Grey Worm and his people are just all gonna die.
That's.
It feels like a good like symbol or metaphor of what the show is like. Yeah, here's something. Some people die.
Yeah.
Or what this season is. And, you know, I think season 4 of Game of Thrones, season 3 too, just some of the most brilliant television I've seen.
Would you recommend it to
somebody
someone that just had never seen it? Because I know some people binge watched it to get up to season 8 before.
Oh, I do actually know some people.
And they were very upset that they had spent all that time binge watching it because they were rapidly.
I hope you feel good about yourself if you're upset, because I watched it in 2014. I was like, when these White Walkers come? I hope y'all ready. And then like dead instantly.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I know you did too.
Yeah.
So if that's like, you know what it reminds me of? If Thanos was lame. Because they were hyping up Thanos for so long.
That's a good
Thanos
point.
came in, it was just like garbage. You'd be like, wow, that's bad. You did stick the landing, or even if that, like, because he's the antagonist. If you had your protagonist, Cap and Iron, they started acting a character they had nothing to do, it would feel lame. But unfortunately, but fortunately, they're not in Game of Thrones, so they actually knew what they were doing. But it just felt like nothing was paid off, and nothing was ever quite as good as it was in its earlier seasons. And with Breaking Bad, which is for my money, I'd probably say the greatest show of all time. I can say it pretty confidently. It got better with every season. You don't get that with many shows.
Yeah, it ended on a high note.
Yeah, and when you have a great ending, like, I think there's something special to be said about that, because so many shows that have been beloved, like Lost and Dexter come to mind. They're just like their finales are maligned for how just anticlimactic or even like stupid they are. And I haven't seen either of those shows.
I loved Lost.
Yeah, I know you did. You were a big fan.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that right now.
Yeah. So
one day I'll get you on it.
I'll watch Lost, but why would I? That's the thing. Like, if I'm showing my kids, we were talking about this right before. If I show my kids Game of Thrones, like, do I want to lie to them, like, wait till you see the White Walkers? Because if I'm showing the Marvel movies, I can actually be excited. Like, I can't wait till they see Thanos. But if I'm showing them, or even if I'm showing like a Star Wars movie that they haven't seen before, I'm like, oh, wait till they see when Darth Vader uses his lightsaber. I can't say that about Game of Thrones. I'm like, just wait till you see Jon Snow fall back.
Yeah,
it's just, and it feels a little annoying. Same thing with The Last Jedi. So things like
we're
gonna get to that movie one day.
We'll talk about
one of my
that
least favorite movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'd say overall, I don't think it's like a piece of garbage, season 8. Season 8. But I really hated episode 5, and I just thought, and then one other thing I'll say, I forgot to say is, it just felt like a little bland and a little lifeless. Yeah. And if you're a finale of a show, you have to be like grand, you have to have that feeling of
it wasn't a nice wrap up. It was just like
rough around there.
Yeah, almost like check marks. Like,
yeah.
Okay, this person went here, this person went here, as opposed to giving them like a bow.
Yeah, and you feel like, that's the right way to end. Like Breaking Bad's last episode, Felina, is a super quiet episode, but it's just a quiet show. Yeah. It doesn't have battles with hundreds of people. And I'm not saying Game of Thrones needed to have that, but Game of Thrones, the first 30 minutes of the last episode was just like me sitting there like, oh, I hated episode 5 because I was watching the aftermath of it. Yeah. Oh, and then the one other thing we forgot to talk about is the dragon and like Jon and Daenerys. Oh, yeah. She died just like, and I was like, this is what happens when you rush things. It's like, it's so clear to watch on screen. It's how I felt about Batman vs Superman. Like, when things get rushed, things are bad. That's why I know, I'm sure people are going to start to say on this channel that I love Marvel movies too much because I always,
you're Marvel.
I'm always complimenting them and stuff, and I'm never like criticizing them. And I have criticisms, but like there's something to be said about taking 11 years of patience and paying things off and building things up instead of using however many time because you want to compete with other people and you rush stuff and you just put it out and it's not a finished product that's as quality as it should be.
So you think they need another season? Do you think
George R. R. Martin said they could have been 13.
Yeah,
which I thought was I'm not going to sit here and criticize or even argue because like he knows what he's talking about. It's him. But like the thing is like I don't know if it needed 13 because blah blah blah. But it at least needed season 8 to have 10 episodes. At least needed season 9 like to have 10 episodes. That would have been good enough for me. But I think 10 seasons would have been solid because there are some shows that are really long. Some shows like that are short. Like Breaking Bad, it shouldn't have been much longer. It was a perfect length for me. Like Mad Men, a show I like. It's pretty long, but it's because it's like important to the show. Game of Thrones, it's a big grand world. There's like the 7 kingdoms and 6 now, but you got all this land, all this lore you have to get to it. It just this last season felt rushed and it left a bad taste in my mouth about the show.
I think if they would have had 9 seasons, I think if this 8th season would have showed Jon and Daenerys' like kind of relationship, but also downfall. But then there was also it ended with the White Walker or the big battle at the end, and then season 9 was about Cersei and them trying to still mend their differences with Jon and
that would have been
Daenerys.
great. Well, the thing about Game of Thrones is it always had political and religious ideas infused into it. Something I don't think Game of Thrones is better than Lord of the Rings, but I'm about to say this really quick. I think that part of it was better than Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings kind of skipped out on like the actual some of the deeper things of the world. I thought the idea of religion and politics in Game of Thrones showing those things that are still relevant today, but in a different light, was one of the reasons I loved it, especially the politics stuff. But none of that was in this season.
No.
And the religion thing, apparently it's a lot better than the books. Like the idea of how different religions cause conflict and stuff. And, Stannis in the books is apparently like this guy who's trying to fight for religion. And, the High Sparrows in season 6 for me were probably the worst part of that season. Kind of ruined the season almost. But the idea of all these cool political things, like you remember Tywin and Joffrey, and they had those talks about politics. I love that style, like that stuff. And devoid of any of that this season. I can't think of anything this season had that was better. Even the budget, it has the highest budget, you can tell. But I know people like say for TV it looks really good, and it absolutely does. But the fight between the Hound and the Mountain, I thought, I'm gonna say it right now, it's a little overrated. I know people are gonna get mad because they love that, but if you watch the battle and you look at the editing and the coloring at the bottom shots, it's like orange, and the high shots like this yellow, and it looks so artificial and processed that you're like, this looks like unprofessional, and it should not look unprofessional if you're Game of Thrones and you only have 6 episodes. So you pour a lot of money into each episode's budget.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. And the one last thing about the Iron Throne.
Yeah,
why did the dragon burn that? Like.
Symbolic. I don't know.
Yeah,
no one knows.
You thought this was cool, so we're gonna subvert your expectations. Yeah. Luke throws away Rey's lightsaber.
Yeah,
those types of things annoy me because it feels like your creators don't respect you. And if you're creators, like you're nothing without your fans. If you're making stuff that they like, and like you have to respect them. It feels like the only people who are doing that nowadays is the MCU. So. Yeah. Sorry I compliment them so much, but they really have impressed me with how
well they give you something to go home with.
It's not like they haven't done things that are unexpected. The Shield thing was a big, but it always was like okay, but the Game of Thrones just left such a.
There's nothing for me to hold on to be like, okay, I feel good about that ending.
You know what's something that's funny? In Breaking Bad, the machine gun that Walt pulls out of his car, Vince Gilligan, who's the creator, one of the lead writers on the show, said that they put that in there and they had no idea what they were going to do with it. And he goes, I hope we never do that again. Good thing it turned out right. But that's a funny example because that's not good writing. Yeah. It's not a good thing to put something in when you don't know what it is. And yet they made it work. Game of Thrones seemed like they were planning things and then they messed that up. Yeah. And that's like the opposite of what you should be doing when you have this show with all these writers and all this, especially George R. R. Martin as a consultant. It didn't seem like he cared as much about this because he's writing like the final Game of Thrones book. And, even though I haven't read the other books, I might just buy them all, read those so I could get a good ending that I like a little more.
Yeah,
because I'm sure even if he does the same ending as the show, it'll just be done better, I think. Yeah. The character development and whatnot.
More satisfactory.
Yeah, so overall... it's a good ending. It should not be saying that. I should be loving it, But for me, Game of Thrones is nowhere near the best show anymore. Do you want to rate the seasons really quick?
Sure, go ahead.
I was like worst to best?
Yeah.
All right. 8, 5, 7.
Wait. So 8 was your worst season?
Yeah, by far.
Okay.
8, 5, 7, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
6 I know some people really love season 6, and its moments are great, like the Battle of the Bastards and Hold the Door, and I guess like the wildfire explosion. But you know what? Who that wildfire explosion was on? The High Sparrows, the worst characters in Game of Thrones history. Like Joffrey sucked, but Joffrey was very hateable, and that's entertaining. Yeah. The High Sparrows were just like you watch them, and you're like, dude, get off the screen, please. Yeah. I'd rather watch Jon Snow like eat food right now. So yeah, I didn't like that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. That's just because it got better with every season. Those seasons were masterful.
Yeah.
Well, if you're ever craving some good Game of Thrones stuff, go watch Tyrion's trial again. That scene's a masterclass of acting and script writing and all that.
Nice.
And I look all these clips up on YouTube, and it's so funny. All the comments are like, "Who's here after seeing? Who's here after looking what Game of Thrones used to be?"
Yeah.
It makes me laugh because I'm like,
because you're one of those people.
Yeah. So yeah, cool. It's a good finale, I guess.
Nice. Okay. Well, there you have it. There's our review of Game of Thrones, season 8, the finale, and all the other seasons pretty much. And we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe and leave some comments down below. We'll take a look at them.